Today is Saturday the 25th of January. This will be a very, very important video or viewing coming from the Windmill Ministries pertaining to the disease that is now spreading rapidly over in China. Before this starts, because I've only seen just maybe 2 minutes of it, realizing how drastically things have already changed just in the past 72 hours towards it becoming known publicly. Keep in mind, this was already going on over there for the past couple weeks before they identified the problem and let it be known publicly. You know, there was massive protest over there for about half the year last year. Massive protesting. Some of those protesting actually got violent towards the people standing up pertaining to the communism-controlled government over there. But whenever this news first broke 72 hours ago, I had contacted my niece out in California, and I had contacted Homeland Security. But I had let them know that I was going to keep a lid on it until I realized what we was dealing with as far as the outbreak drastically increasing. It was the following next day whenever I woke up and got to listening to the headlines on the news and realizing, oh my God, this is really increasing. I had a gut feeling the first night that I issued out my particular views or my particular ideals or warnings of this particular crisis. And I had such of a overwhelming feeling whenever I first observed what was going on that I actually got the shakes inside. My whole inner structure pertaining to my aura was shaken, and come to tears, understanding and realizing what this could have evolved off into. And this was within the first day that I had become associated with the coronavirus outbreak. Our United States military has always been on top of biological chemical warfare. That's the reason why that we have research centers and laboratories set up all over, not only here in America, but all over the world, in case of something like this occurring. It predicts in the Bible of great hysteria and massive plagues and diseases that will break out in the last days, pertaining to last day biblical Bible prophecy. After just listening to only 2 minutes of this a while ago, it has absolutely shattered my heart in seeing the devastation that is happening over in China. Because the thing about a disease like this, it's not just affecting the adult society. It's not just affecting the elderly society. It's not just affecting the working society or the wicked society. It's affecting all societies, including the children, including the oldest of the old, the weakest of the weak. So as you watch this, I'm going to let you know that it was absolutely a heartbreak for me this morning, as of January the 25th. I believe it's the 25th, Saturday, observing what is going on in the country of China. It is biblical proportional sorrows that has befallen upon to that society in such of a degree that it has literally shaken me to the very core of seeing how devastating that something like this can be, not just to one country, but to the world in general. Please, as you're watching this, this is not Hollywood. This is not some sort of made-up novel or script. This is raw reality in the truest form that you can get of what is occurring right now, presently, over in this country. So please, please take this extremely serious, that these occurrences that are happening over there could very well be affecting our lives over here in a short amount of time if we do not restrain this virus and eradicate it before it starts eradicating us. This is one of the primary concerns of the United States military, of an enemy, an adversary that can literally bring a society to its knees. This is more lethal than 1,000 nuclear bombs going off at one time. And I know that sounds silly to even make mention of that. But if something like this breaks out to the point that it's uncontrollable, towards it actually being some sort of a plague, a bubonic disease, it can literally take out millions of people just within a matter of a short time. So take this serious in what you're fixing to see of the beginning developments of an outbreak that may exceed the mad cow disease. It may exceed even the Spanish flu disease or other pandemics that have come out of nowhere. I was also touching off yesterday on some other adventurous ideals towards looking at the History Channel pertaining to what that they have discovered in ice just recently within the past few years, of how that ice is a living organism that harbors, that fosters these type of viruses inside these ice canals and channels that are now presently melting at a rapid rate. As these things are melting, they're exposing primitive viruses into the atmosphere that could very well be devastating to our planet. These are not things to be taken lightly. Whenever you're talking about parasites that can literally attack the human system in breaking it down within just a matter of a few days or a few weeks, to the point that our resistance is totally, totally dissolved. So as you're watching this, understand that this is not Hollywood. This is not something that people are making up. This is not some sort of a novel that somebody decided to make a book about. This is the raw, real deal that has absolutely overwhelmed me to the very core. Please watch.
To bring you this update that has developed overnight, healthcare workers in China are warning they are dangerously low on medical supplies. The death toll from the Wuhan coronavirus has jumped to 41 people now, and close to 60 million people in 15 different Chinese cities are on lockdown this morning. The disease is continuing to spread to countries around the world, including the United States. So joining us with important updates, we have CNN Chief Medical Correspondent Dr. Sanjay Gupta and CNN International Correspondent David Culver, who has been to the epicenter of the outbreak. So David, tell us what's the latest there.
That's right, Allison. And we've been in touch with folks who are at the epicenter right now within the city of Wuhan, healthcare workers in particular. My team and I here in Beijing, we touched base with them by phone, including doctors at 4 separate hospitals. They are portraying an increasingly desperate situation. They say they are lacking some significant supplies to carry out their duties, including goggles, face masks, even those hazmat suits. Now, one healthcare worker says it's like going into battle without armor, adding that they have resorted to keeping their hazmat suits on all day, avoiding eating and drinking, and in some extreme cases, wearing diapers to avoid having to go to the bathroom. They just don't want to get rid of their suits, worried that may be the last one. Now, those are extreme cases, perhaps even isolated. We're not sure how widespread that is, but nonetheless disturbing to hear. Some of these images we're about to show you also rather disturbing. I'm going to show you this pharmacy. This is also within the city of Wuhan. You can see how crowded it is. Look at the folks who are working there, the employees. Imagine seeing this at your local pharmacy. They're covered in these hazmat suits from head to toe, likewise concealing themselves for obvious reasons. They don't want to risk any exposure. So what is the central government doing? Well, they're planning to build not one, but we've just learned 2 hospitals. The first going to be a 1,000-bed hospital within the city of Wuhan. You can see in this video that state media has released, they've got bulldozers and front-end loaders clearing the lot there. And they're planning to build a second one. Now, the first one's going to be done in 6 days, they say. The second one, about 15 days. The second one will have about 1,300 beds. They're also deploying medical personnel. They've got about 1,200 civilian nurses and doctors who will be going down, and another 135 military medical personnel who are going into the epicenter of all of this, the city of Wuhan. Allison, you got to put this in perspective. We talk about these new numbers, 57 million. This is now 15 cities. That's like combining the population of California and New York. That's how many people we're talking about impacted by this wide range.
The state of California, all its population, and the whole state towards New York and New York City, combining both of these together. That's how many people right now, presently, are under quarantine. If that does not grab your attention, if that is not astounding to you, obviously, you are either consciously dead to the point that you don't realize the significance of what they're talking about, or you just don't care. This is more serious than North Korea ever thought about towards violating our principles by trying to use fear tactics in regard to a nuclear ballistic missile.
Of lockdowns.
Listen to this one more time. This is so serious.
This is now 15 cities. That's like combining the population of California and New York. That's how many people we're talking about impacted by this wide range of lockdowns.
Oh my gosh, David. And every day it seems to grow exponentially. I mean, thanks to your reporting, we are aware of it. So, Sanjay, what David has just described is obviously scenes from an apocalypse. I mean, people having to dress in hazmat suits all the time, doctors taking to not eating or drinking for fear of taking off their hazmat suit. There's now another case in the United States. How do you see everything this morning?
They're talking about people that are so frightened that they're putting diapers and being willing to walk around with poo-poo and pee-pee in their diaper all day long. That way they do not have to worry about losing their suit and coming out of their suit and becoming exposed. Those are dire situations that these people are looking at towards a humanitarian crisis. And this humanitarian crisis that they are now experiencing could go global. If it is not contained, it could go global.
Yeah, I mean, look, these numbers are growing. We have some precedents to sort of understand how quickly a virus like this can spread. I mean, we've seen this story before, but we never know exactly with the new virus exactly how it's going to unfold. So now in the United States, for example, there are 2 confirmed cases of coronavirus, one in Seattle we've been talking about for some time, and now a woman in Chicago, you can see on the screen there, she's in her 60s, she traveled to Wuhan, returned to Chicago on January 13th. We also know that she had limited contact with people outside her home. This is important. These investigators have to recreate her life, essentially. She started developing symptoms and then ended up in isolation at the hospital. But Allison, let me tell you, so these airports are being screened. There's 5 airports now in the United States. They screened over 2,000 people now. So here in the United States, 63 people are under investigation currently in 22 different states. I give you all these numbers just to give you an idea, again, of how quickly this could potentially spread and the sort of resources that are necessary now to sort of keep on top of that. The numbers I just shared with you, those are clearly going to grow. There are many people under investigation. We're going to keep an eye on those. But then it's a question of what about their close contacts? How at risk are they? Right now, what you'll hear from the CDC, and this is the good news, is that the risk of that sort of transmission appears to be low, the risk to the general population low. And when someone is not symptomatic, coughing, sneezing, things like that, the likelihood of them spreading the virus is low. So that's the good news. But, obviously they got to keep seeing how this thing could change.
That is good news that we will cling to this morning. David Culver, Dr. Sanjay Gupta, thank you very much for this important update. We will check back with you, obviously. John.
All right, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo loses his cool and his dignity when asked a simple question about Ukraine. An expletive-laden outburst after being asked the simplest of questions. Next.
I hesitated on issuing out the first information
In a marketplace.
based around I didn't want to be accused of what that I had already been accused of in Martin, Tennessee, towards falsifying files in the regard in possibly starting a panic. I have data to verify my statements made to Homeland Security, the first setting of awareness of this outbreak. I explained to them that if it intensified, that I would be forced to have to go ahead and put this out to my viewers. Once more, whenever you have something so insane that has occurred in my life over in Martin, Tennessee, in the regards of a incident that happened in 2005 towards being charged with falsifying files. One is hesitant, even though you have that gut-wrenching feeling. One is hesitant towards doing the right thing because I had already been falsely accused of just making a simple statement to a 7-Eleven teller that there was so much controversy in my life that there was going to be an explosion of talk and that I was liable to wind up on the Channel 6 News. In which I did wind up on the Channel 6 News out in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma in 2009. So that in which what I had made reference to did in fact occur. It come true. Towards not only the controversy, but also being on the news. I feel guilty by not going ahead and issuing out within the first 24 hours of the magnitude of this horrible, horrible disease that is now intensifying on a gravity like we could not ever imagine. It's kind of like the gravity of all the fires out in Australia. Unless you have actually paid close attention to the news articles and how that fire has consumed thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of acres of woods and open vegetation. Unless you have kept up with the news pertaining to other major occurrences that has been affecting the planet, regardless whether it's been over in India or Africa or over in the Middle East or over in the Europe, England area, unless you have been on top of the news pertaining to all these breaking news events that has basically been mind-boggling pertaining to this type of seriousness, you're not going to be able to comprehend the magnitude of this.
Not filming. Wuhan city officials declared partial lockdown on Thursday. Crowds lined up for tickets at 4 a.m.
This gives you an idea of how seriously people are taking this idea to leave Wuhan.
The journey to the top for a
Culver, who has been to the epicenter of the outbreak. So, David, tell us what's the latest there.
That's right, Allison. And we've been in touch with folks who are at the epicenter right now within the city of Wuhan, healthcare workers in particular. My team and I here in Beijing, we touched base with them by phone, including doctors at 4 separate hospitals. They are portraying an increasingly desperate situation. They say they are lacking some significant supplies to carry out their duties, including goggles, face masks, even those hazmat suits. Now, one healthcare worker says it's like going into battle without armor, adding that they have resorted to keeping their hazmat suits on all day, avoiding eating and drinking, and in some extreme cases, wearing diapers to avoid having to go to the bathroom. They just don't want to get rid of their suits, worried that that may be the last one. Now, those are extreme cases, perhaps even isolated. We're not sure how widespread that is, but nonetheless disturbing to hear. Some of these images we're about to show you also rather disturbing. I'm going to show you this pharmacy. This is also within the city of Wuhan. You can see how crowded it is. Look at the folks who are working there, the employees. Imagine seeing this at your local pharmacy. They're covered in these hazmat suits from head to toe, likewise concealing themselves for obvious reasons. They don't want to risk any exposure. So what is the central government doing? Well, they're planning to build not one, but we've just learned 2 hospitals. The first going to be a 1,000-bed hospital within the city of Wuhan. You can see in this video that state media has released, they've got bulldozers and front-end loaders clearing the lot there. And they're planning to build a second one. Now, the first one's going to be done in 6 days, they say. The second one, about 15 days. The second one will have about 1,300 beds. They're also deploying medical personnel. They've got about 1,200 civilian nurses and doctors who will be going down, and another 135 military medical personnel who are going into the epicenter of all of this, the city of Wuhan. Allison, you got to put this in perspective. We talk about these new numbers, 57 million. This is now 15 cities. That's like combining the population of California and New York. That's how many people we're talking about impacted by this wide range of lockdowns.
Oh my gosh, David. And every day it seems to grow exponentially. I mean, thanks to your reporting, we are aware of it. So, Sanjay, what David has just described is obviously scenes from an apocalypse. I mean, people having to dress in hazmat suits.
Apocalyptic. It sure is. It is so sad.
The time.
Let's move forward because we've already done scanned this once. Let's go forward real quick. And let's see if they can pick up on something else. And if not, we'll end the program.
In the Iranian missile strikes, it comes after.
We're really focusing in on this disease right now.
I think what this tells.
Yep. There's some more here. Back up, back up, back up. Right there.
This is CNN.
Developing overnight, the VFW, Veterans of Foreign Wars, is demanding an apology from President Trump for downplaying the injuries sustained by U.S. troops in the Iranian missile strikes. It comes after the Pentagon announced that 34 U.S. service members were diagnosed with traumatic brain injuries following those attacks. That's a much higher number that they reported. And remember, initially they said there were no casualties in the attack. Clearly now there were.
Okay, this ain't talking about the corona disease, but it is something extensively serious pertaining to our soldiers and what occurred whenever you have these massive